The stars over Zalara Prime looked peaceful that night. The twin moons bathed the sharp towers of the royal city in silver light. Soldiers marched along the palace walls, unaware that peace was about to shatter. Deep below the royal grounds, sensors missed the ripple in space that tore open behind the dark side of the planet. Princess Arabella stood on her balcony, her black hair flowing like smoke in the wind. Her gaze was sharp, cold, and proud. She had been trained since birth never to trust outsiders, especially not the humans. She had sworn before her court, before the elders, that she would die before she ever bonded with one. A flash lit up the night sky. The alarms blared. Arabella didn't flinch. She turned slowly, her armored boots clicking against the crystal floor. Intrusion breach detected in Sector 9. Her guard's voice rang through her comlink. She narrowed her eyes. That sector was forbidden. It housed the last of the ancient technology even her people feared. Warships broke through. The clouds, the invaders came fast, sharp, and silent. They were not her people's enemies. They were worse. Machines that felt nothing. They spread like fire across cities, consuming power, life, and memory. The ancient technology had drawn them in like a signal. And now they were here to erase it all. The princess activated her warsuit. Her long black tail flicked behind her as she moved through the halls. Servants bowed, but she ignored them. Her mother, the queen, had died in the last war. Her father too. Now the crown sat heavy on her head, and her blood carried the last hope of her kind. At the edge of the collapsing city, far from the palace, a human stood among the burning debris. His ship was wrecked, body bruised, and rifle nearly out of charge. He hadn't planned to land here. He was chasing the machines when they jumped into forbidden space. Now he was stuck, alone, and hunted. He saw the alien towers in the distance. He saw the fire raining down. And he moved toward it, not away. Because something in his gut told him someone needed help. And he couldn't walk away. That was something the humans were known for: stubborn courage and reckless compassion. The machines reached the palace gates. Energy shields cracked. Soldiers fell screaming. Arabella stood at the front, blade in one hand, plasma dart in the other. She fought like a storm, her tail moving with deadly grace. Her people cheered her name, but it was not enough. There were too many. One of the machines locked onto her. Its limbs shifted, forming a spear of white heat. It lunged. She turned, but too slow. Death was certain. Until a blast came from behind. The machine's chest exploded. The smell of burned circuits filled the air. And there he was standing, with a smoking rifle, blood on his cheek. She stared at him, her breath sharp and wild. He looked back, eyes tired but steady. The air between them cracked with heat and disbelief. She raised her weapon at him. He didn't move. "I don't need saving," she hissed. "You already were," he said, before firing at another drone behind her. They fought side by side through the night. She never spoke again, but every time he moved, she followed. Every time he covered her, she shielded him. There was no trust yet, but there was survival. And in war, that was enough. By dawn, the skies were quiet. Smoke curled from broken towers. The machines retreated. The palace stood, barely. Arabella limped into the throne room, bleeding. He followed behind, silent. Her people looked at her. Then at the human. The room froze. She raised her chin and said nothing, then collapsed. The healers came. He stayed close. For days, she remained unconscious, but he never left. Her court whispered. The elders debated. No outsider had ever entered the royal hall. No human had ever walked freely under their banners. And yet none dared to stop him. When she finally opened her eyes, she saw him asleep beside her bed. His face was calm, his rifle leaning on the wall. She blinked slowly. Her voice cracked. "Why did you stay?" she asked. He didn't wake. But she whispered again, softer this time. I owe you nothing. He opened one eye, smiled faintly and said, I didn't ask for anything. But something had changed in her eyes. Asterisk. The moment she woke, the chamber fell silent. Everyone expected a command, a demand, or a rejection. But Arabella only looked at the human, her breath shallow and her chest bandaged. She didn't ask for a report or shout for her guards. She only asked one question. Where are they now? Her voice was weak but sharp. One of her advisors stepped forward. Retreated beyond orbit, but not destroyed. She turned her head slowly toward the human. You helped stop them. But you didn't finish them. His reply was calm. I wasn't done yet, are you? The elders met behind closed doors. The princess had fought beside a human, and now he walked through royal halls as if he belonged. That had never happened in Zalaran history. Some called it dishonor, others called it survival. And one elder warned, the blood bond may already be forming. Arabella sat in her garden, a place of rare peace in the heart of her city. She watched the human train with her soldiers. His moves were precise, brutal, efficient. He didn't smile. He didn't speak much, but her warriors respected him. He bled beside them. That meant more than rank or birth. She remembered her words, spoken years ago before the Galactic Forum. I will never submit to the humans. They are chaos wrapped in flesh. Now one of them had saved her life and her kingdom. The words echoed in her head like a curse. Or maybe it was a warning. That night she called for him. He entered without fear. She sat in shadow, a single beam of moonlight casting silver across her armor. You could have left. Why didn't you? He crossed his arms. Because they're not done. And neither am I. She studied him for a long time before replying. I don't trust you. I don't need you to, he answered. The tension between them was sharp, but not hostile. It was forged in fire, in blood, and in the silence between battles. But I do need your army, he added. And you need me, whether you admit it or not. They launched a strike together. Small, precise, and devastating. They targeted one of the machine's forward bases buried beneath a volcanic ridge. He led the team through the vents. She led the assault on the gate. Neither failed. Neither hesitated. And when the dust cleared, the base was ash. The victories made her people whisper, the human fights like he's one of us. She watches him like he's her shadow. He was once an outsider. Now he walks as if he's always belonged. Her general warned her, your heart is no longer silent. Be careful who you let near it. She wanted to deny it. She wanted to bury the thought that his presence steadied her pulse. That his words lingered longer than they should. But denial could not change truth. He was more than a fighter. He was becoming something else. Something she had never allowed before. One evening, after a mission nearly went wrong, he returned with blood on his arm. She was already waiting in the med chamber. She didn't speak. She simply cleaned the wound herself. Her hands were careful. Her eyes unreadable. He didn't flinch. He didn't thank her. That silence said more than words. The court demanded answers. Is he your consort now? Will you break the ancient vow? Will a human rule beside you? She stood in front of them in full battle armor. Her crown glowed dimly in the rising sun. Her voice was steel. He is a warrior, not my master, not my slave. But he is needed. Some accepted her words, others did not. But none dared to challenge her, not after what she had survived. Not after what they had seen her become. And through it all, the human never asked for status or power. He asked only one thing, point me at the next target. In the privacy of her chamber, she watched him from the high balcony as he trained the next wave of soldiers. His form moved like fire across the training ground. And for the first time in her life, she wondered what it would feel like not to command him, but to stand beside him always. She whispered to herself in a language older than stars. A vow spoken by her ancestors. A curse upon any who bonded with an outsider, but she was already past the edge. The curse had no hold over her heart anymore. And as the wind swept her hair, she made a silent choice. She would fight the machines. She would protect her people. But she would no longer lie to herself about the human. The machines did not vanish after their retreat. They adapted. Every time the princess and the human struck a blow, the next battle grew harder. The enemy learned. The enemy watched. And now they were preparing for something larger, a strange signal pulsed through the outer stars. It did not match any known code, but its direction was clear. It pointed to Zalara. The princess met with her war council. Her tone was cold. Her orders were clear. Trace it. Decode it. Destroy the source. The human stood at her side. He didn't speak unless asked. But when she turned to him, her eyes always held weight. He was more than just her protector now. He was her sword in the dark, her silent fire. And he never failed her. A scout ship went missing during a patrol. Its last report showed something unnatural. A black tower had risen from the ocean floor, near the ruins of an ancient Zalaran city. The tower was not there before. It had grown like a seed sprouting from death. Arabella ordered a task force to investigate. She led it herself. He came too, without question. They flew low through the misty air, their ship cutting across black waves like a knife. Lightning flashed above. The tower loomed like a spear against the sky. When they reached it, the sensors died, their suits glitched. The air felt heavy, as if time itself had slowed. The human stepped out first. She followed, her weapon drawn. The ground cracked beneath them. And then the tower opened. Inside, light swirled in strange patterns. Symbols pulsed across the walls. The air whispered in ancient voices. It wasn't machine code, it was something older. Something that remembered Zalaran blood. She pressed her palm against the symbols. They responded. The human moved deeper, scanning the chambers. He found remains, not machines. Not aliens, Zelarans. Dozens of them. Mummified. Hollowed out. As if the tower had drained them. As if it had been feeding. Arabella saw it too. And her heart turned cold. This was no weapon built by machines. It was built by her ancestors, a failed project. Forbidden by law, buried for a reason. And now awakened by the machine signal, her comlink sparked. A voice broke through. One of her generals. High orbit breach. Incoming fleet. Thousands. No markings, no ID. The timing was not a mistake. The machines had found the tower. And now they were coming to protect it. They had minutes. She turned to the human. We need to destroy this place. He nodded once. No fear. No hesitation. He pulled out the charges. She guided him to the power core. It beat like a heart, deep beneath the black stone. As they moved, something followed them. Shadows stretched along the wall. Shapes slithered just out of sight. The tower was alive. And it didn't want to die. It began sealing passages, closing walls. One by one, their exit paths vanished. The human threw her forward as a wall slammed down behind them. Go! He shouted. She turned, reaching for him. He grunted, pulling free from a shifting stone spike. Blood stained his armor. But he kept moving, always forward. Always toward the core. They reached it just as the tower began to shake. The sky above turned dark red. Lightning carved through the ocean. The fleet was arriving. The machines descended in columns of fire. Her people were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, but they had the tower. If it fell, the enemy would lose its key. She planted the final charge. He set the timer. 10 minutes, no way to stop it, no way to undo it. She looked at him. We may not get out, he smiled. Then we make it count. They ran. The tower screamed. The floor cracked. Energy surged through the walls. The voices grew louder. The air burned, but they didn't stop. Their boots struck stone, ash, and fire. One path opened ahead. Only one. A narrow crawl space barely wide enough. He pushed her through first. The tower tried to close it. He held it back with his bare arms. Muscles straining, she screamed at him. He roared back, "Go!" She slipped through. The wall came down. She turned, reaching through the crack. His hand found hers. She pulled. He pushed. And somehow they made it out. Just as the tower exploded behind them, lighting the sea with fire and shadows. A wave struck them. She woke on the beach, gasping. He lay beside her, unconscious but breathing. The fleet above paused. Something had shifted. The tower was gone, and with it, the signal. Their formation broke. Their direction faltered. Her generals called in. They are falling back. The machines are confused. They've lost the command thread. She stood, soaked and shaking, armor cracked. She looked down at him, this man who had no crown. No bloodline, no rank, but without him, her world would have ended. And for the first time, she knelt beside him not as a ruler, but as something else. Asterisk, the sun rose slowly over the shattered coastline. Smoke lingered above the water, mixing with mist and broken metal. Princess Arabella stood at the edge of the sand, her eyes locked on the human who still hadn't woken. He breathed steadily. His chest moved with each breath, but the wounds were deep. His armor had cracked, blood stained the edges of his ribs. The healers had done all they could. Now only time would decide. She stayed beside him for hours. Her advisors came and went. Reports were delivered. Maps updated, but she didn't move. Her hand never left the hilt of her blade. And her gaze never left his face. Word spread across the empire. The tower was gone. The machines had been driven back. The human had survived the impossible. And the princess, the one who once declared she would never kneel to a human, had fought beside him and bled for him, the people whispered. Some were proud. Others were afraid. The elders were silent. But deep down, they all felt it. Something old had broken. And something new had begun. On the fourth day, he opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was her, standing still, watching him, her face unreadable. He smiled faintly. "You stayed." She nodded once. "You didn't die." He tried to sit up. Pain gripped his body. She moved forward, catching him gently. Her hand pressed to his back. For a moment, they didn't speak. They just breathed. Close quiet. Alive, outside the chamber, her general paced. When the door opened, he stood at attention. "Your Highness, we intercepted a new signal. It's not from the machines. It's something else, something old." She frowned. "Location?" The general handed her a display. "The Dead Ring. Just past the Grave Nebula." She stiffened. That place was forbidden. Even her ancestors had sealed it. The stories said it was cursed. The human walked up beside her, still limping, still bruised, but standing. "Looks like we're not done." She looked at him for a long moment, then gave the order. "Prepare the fleet. We leave at dawn." The journey to the Dead Ring took 6 days. The stars grew darker the closer they got. Lights flickered in unnatural ways. Time seemed to bend. Her crew grew uneasy. Old fears whispered in every hallway. The human didn't flinch. He stayed calm, focused. Every night he trained. Every morning he stood ready. He said little. But when he looked at Arabella, his silence spoke more than words. She watched him during those moments. Studied him like a puzzle she couldn't solve. There was strength in him, and sorrow, fire and stillness. He carried weight without showing it. And she had begun to carry it with him. When they reached the Dead Ring, the stars vanished. A black void surrounded them. No planets, no light. Just silence. And then it came a signal unlike any they had heard before. Deep, cold, alive, the ship shook. Systems blinked. Lights failed. And then it spoke, not in words, but in pressure, in memory. Everyone on board felt it. A presence that did not belong. Something that had waited for them. Arabella stood firm. Trace the signal. Find the source. The crew obeyed. The ship drifted into the black, slowly, carefully, until a structure emerged from the dark. It was not built. It was grown. The human narrowed his eyes. That's not machine work. It's older. She nodded. It's alive. The structure pulsed like a heart. Their ship stopped beside it. Lights inside the structure began to glow. A docking hatch opened without command. It welcomed them. Arabella armed herself. He did the same. They entered together. The crew remained behind. Only the two of them stepped into the unknown. The walls inside were soft, organic. They moved slowly, like breathing skin. Images flickered on the surface. Memories of war, death, betrayal. Then a symbol appeared, her family's crest. Twisted, she reached out to touch it. The wall pulsed, and then a voice filled her mind. Child of Zalara, you carry our blood. You opened the tomb. You woke the hunger. She staggered back. The human caught her. What did it say? She whispered. This place, it was made by my people, a weapon. It thinks I'm its master, the voice returned. Feed us. Or be fed upon. Bond or break. Choose. She looked at the human. Her heart raced, her mind spun. He met her eyes. Steady and sure. We'll choose together, he said. And she didn't argue this time. The walls around them began to close. Not in a threatening way, but like a living being drawing in breath. The air thickened. Lights pulsed beneath their feet. Each step echoed with something ancient and alive. Arabella held her blade low. The human held his weapon ready. Neither of them spoke. The voice in her mind continued, smooth and cold. You are born from us. You carry the bond. Complete it. She shook her head. I don't know what you mean. The wall responded by revealing an image. It showed her great-grandmother. Standing before the same structure, her hands were glowing. Beside her stood a human male, bound by light. She turned to him. This happened before. He studied the image. Looks like a forced bond. Like your kind created something they couldn't control. She nodded slowly, and buried it when it became too strong. The floor beneath them shifted. A path opened. It led to a glowing chamber at the center of the living structure. Without words, they moved together. Their boots struck the soft floor. The air tasted like metal and memory. Inside the chamber stood a pillar of light. It pulsed with the rhythm of a heartbeat. In its core, a symbol spun slowly, half Solaran, half human. The voice returned. The cycle is broken. Restore the union. Bond or perish. The human stepped forward. What is the bond? The light flared. Life, power, memory, two minds, one purpose. Balance between species. Creation without war. He turned to Arabella. This was never about control. It's about connection. She didn't move. Her eyes flicked between the light and his face. The voice whispered again. You have fought together. Bled together. Now choose together. Or be consumed apart. The walls pulsed louder. The ground began to tremble. Outside, their ship sent warnings. A new fleet had arrived. Not machines. Not human, something unknown. Dozens of ships surrounding the dead ring. Her general's voice cracked through the cum. Your Highness, we are surrounded. Unreadable vessels. They're not attacking yet. But they're not leaving either. She pressed a hand to her ear. Hold position. Do not fire unless fired upon. The human stared at the light. They're drawn by the same signal. Maybe they're here for this. Maybe they want it destroyed. Or maybe they want to take it. Arabella narrowed her eyes. Then we can't let them have it. The voice shifted tones. It grew deeper, urgent. Bond, seal the legacy, or all will unravel. She looked at him, her voice low. If I do this, there's no going back. He answered simply. Then let's go forward. She stepped into the light. He followed without pause. The chamber reacted. Runes glowed across the walls. Their bodies were lifted into the air, their minds filled with sound, with pain, with truth. She saw his past, battles, loss, family, sacrifice. He saw hers, duty, blood, loneliness, fear. Their pain twisted together, their memories blended. Their voices became one, and the bond was sealed. They dropped to the ground gasping. The light dimmed. The voice spoke no more. But something had changed. In their eyes, in their minds, in their pulse. They were not just allies now. There was something deeper. The walls opened. The structure began to shake. Outside, the alien ships moved closer. One of them launched a small shuttle. It landed near the structure. Armed figures stepped out. Masks hid their faces. But their weapons were clear. Arabella stepped outside first, her blade in hand. The human followed, no longer behind her, but beside her. The alien squad stopped a few feet away. One of them raised a scanner. It beeped once. Then the alien lowered his weapon. He spoke in a rough accent. The bond is restored. We were sent to witness, and if needed, to end the mistake. But the cycle has changed. Arabella raised her chin. Then leave this place. We have no war with you. The alien bowed slightly. Not yet. But others will come. You are marked now. By power and by prophecy. Then they turned and left. No shots fired. No blood spilled. Just a message carried in silence. Back on their ship, the crew stared at their princess and the human. Something about them had changed. Their movements matched. Their thoughts seemed aligned. No one dared ask what happened. But everyone felt it. In her chambers, she removed her armor slowly. He stood at the window, watching the stars. She approached and stood beside him. Do you feel it too? She asked. He nodded once. Like we're no longer alone, she closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she wasn't just a ruler. She wasn't just a warrior. She was bonded to someone by more than politics or power. And somehow, it didn't feel like weakness. The dead ring faded behind them as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel. Stars stretched across the view screen, and silence filled the command deck. No one dared to speak unless the princess did first. Arabella sat at the edge of the command seat. Her eyes scanned the star maps, but her mind remained elsewhere. Since the bond, her thoughts were no longer hers alone. She could feel him even without turning. The human stood near the tactical console. His body had healed, but a quiet fire still burned in his gaze. He didn't need orders. He already knew what they would be. And she trusted him without speaking. The ship received a transmission from High Command. The Zaliran Senate demanded a report. Whispers of the Forbidden's bond had reached the inner chambers. Their message was clear. Return immediately. Explain everything. Or be labeled traitor. Arabella read it twice. Then deleted it from public view. She walked away without a word. Only the human followed her, matching her stride as if they had done so for years. In her private chamber, she finally turned to him. They want to strip my crown. Break the bond. Deny what happened. His answer came calmly. Then give them something they can't deny. She didn't flinch. What do you suggest? He walked to the center of the room. Proof. A threat only we can stop. Make them see what we become. Show them why they need us, not fear us. Outside the ship's walls, an ancient warning echoed from the edge of known space. A forgotten system blinked red on the map. It hadn't sent signals in centuries. But now it pulsed like a heartbeat. The same one that had come from the tower. They set course immediately. Aravella overrode all Senate directives. Her generals protested. Her advisors warned her. But she moved with purpose. Because the bond had shown her a future that terrified even her. The system was called Thruxion's Grave. Long ago, it was destroyed by a failed weapon. The planet still floated in shattered orbits, but something new had appeared. A structure, the size of a moon, humming with dark energy. Scans failed to identify its origin. No race claimed it. No machine responded to hails. But it emitted one clear signal, directed only at Aravella's ship. A voice they had heard before now spoke again. You are incomplete. Complete or collapse. The structure opened like a flower of metal and light. A docking path extended. The crew hesitated. The human looked at Aravella. She nodded once. And together they descended into the unknown once more. Inside, time seemed slower. Gravity bent strangely. The walls pulsed with energy that made the hair on their necks rise. Symbols lined every surface. All were written in ancient Zalaran code. Even Aravella had to pause to read them. At the heart of the structure stood a chamber made of crystal. Inside floated a being made of light. Its form shifted constantly. Male, female, young, old. It never stayed the same. Its voice filled the room without sound. You are the last of the old bond. The link failed before. You may be the last chance. Will you unite the broken? Will you bear the cost? Aravella stepped forward. What cost? The light answered with a single word. Everything. The human moved beside her. Define everything. The being showed them a vision. Stars falling, races burning, machines overtaking flesh. And at the center of it all, a cracked bond, split by fear and pride. They saw the first bonding, centuries ago. It had failed because of lies and betrayal. The bond had power beyond measure, but without truth, it shattered worlds. Now the same choice had returned. Aravella took his hand. We won't lie. We won't break. He gripped her fingers tightly. Then we finish what they started. The being watched. Then stepped back into the crystal. The structure began to glow. Outside, a fleet of unknown vessels appeared. Larger than anything recorded. Unmarked, unreadable, and moving toward Central. Zalaran space. A countdown began on every screen. Not from their ship, but from the structure itself. The being spoke once more. The bond is the key. Only through unity can the threat be undone. Choose now. Lock it, or everything ends. They looked at each other. No fear. No doubt. She stepped into the light. He followed. The energy wrapped around them like fire. Their voices merged. There. Hearts beat as one. And the galaxy shifted. The bond became permanent. No longer just survival. No longer just war. It became life. Power, truth, and for the first time the stars bent toward peace instead of fire. The shockwave from the structure rippled across systems. Signals blinked off. Communications failed. Across dozens of sectors, power grids dimmed. Then, just as quickly, everything stabilized. The light from the structure faded and silence returned. On board the ship, Aravella opened her eyes first. Her skin glowed faintly. Her breathing was calm, steady. She felt strength she couldn't describe. Beside her, the human sat up slowly. His hand sparked briefly with light before it faded. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The bond between them had grown stronger than thought. It was no longer something they carried. It was now part of who they were. When one moved, the other felt it. When one hurt, the other knew it. The crew observed them with awe and caution. Their presence had changed. Every word spoken from their mouths felt like command. Every glance carried weight. Their voices carried more than sound. They carried truth. Aravella stood on the bridge, her posture unshaken. "Status report," she said. Her general responded instantly. "The structure is stable, but the unknown fleet is moving. They are not responding to hails. They are heading for the core worlds." She nodded once. "Time to intercept. 6 days if we push the engines." She looked at the human. "Then we leave now." He replied with a single word. "Agreed." The ship roared into motion. Other vessels in the region followed their lead. Warnings were sent across space. Civilian colonies were evacuated. Defenses activated. But deep inside, they all knew something had changed. The unknown fleet grew with each passing day. More ships appeared from rips in space. Their designs were unlike anything recorded. Organic, flowing, alive, they moved like creatures, not machines. And they hunted in packs. Attempts at diplomacy failed. One Zaliran envoy was vaporized mid-message. A human scout ship was swallowed whole. Panic began to spread through the outer systems. But Aravella and the human did not waver. Together, they broadcast a single message. "This bond will not break. We stand united, and we will face what comes." The words spread like fire, across systems, across factions, across races. And for the first time in generations, enemies began to speak. Former rivals opened channels. Treaties once ignored were dusted off. Armies that once fought over borders now planned side by side. Because they all saw it clearly. Whatever was coming did not care for flags or bloodlines. It only wanted control in the quiet hours before battle. Aravella stood alone on the observation deck. She stared at the stars and spoke aloud. "My mother would never have believed this. Nor would I that a human would stand beside me like this. That I would let him in." She felt him step behind her. No words. Just presence. The warmth of him calmed her racing heart. She turned to face him. "When this is over, what then?" He looked into her eyes. "Then we decide who we want to be. Together." The moment of calm faded as alarms rang through the ship. The unknown fleet had accelerated. Intercept time had been cut in half. They would reach the core worlds in just 3 days. The countdown to war had begun. Battle plans were drawn, fleets positioned, drones launched, shields activated. But no one truly knew what they were up against. Only one thing was clear. Aravella and the human were the key. Their bond was more than personal. It was now tactical. Their minds sensed faster than any system. In the war chamber, their suggestions came as one. Strategy flowed like breath. Every commander, whether human or Gelleran, followed without hesitation, not because of rank, but because of belief. When the final fleet arrived, the stars were hidden behind metal and bone. The enemy had arrived, and they were endless. But so was the resolve of the Bondforge leaders standing at the edge of war. As Aravella prepared to address the galaxy, her hand brushed against the humans. She didn't pull away. She didn't hide it. She embraced it. Then she stood tall and faced the galaxy with fire in her voice. "We once feared each other. Now we stand united. And if this is our end, we will write it in fire and steel. Together." The galaxy held its breath as the two great forces prepared to clash. The unknown fleet stretched across the stars like a living wall. Its ships pulsed with energy drawn from forgotten realms. They moved without sound, without warning, and without mercy. The combined armada of humans, Zellerans, and dozens of other species waited in formation. It was a sight never seen before. Old enemies stood side by side. Different flags flew together. And at the center of it all stood Aravella and the human. The war did not begin with words. It began with light, blinding, sudden, one of the enemy. Ships launched a beam that tore through 3 defense cruisers. Fire filled space. Screams filled the comms. The battle had begun. Aravella's voice cut through the chaos. Form strike wings, push from flanks, shield the civilians. Her mind linked with the humans. He gave orders at the same time. Every move was mirrored. Every command reinforced. Their minds had become one strategy. No hesitation. No second guessing. As the enemy pressed forward, they pressed harder, faster, smarter. Where machines acted with speed, the bond acted with purpose. The enemy adapted. It split its forces, tried to isolate the leaders. A dozen ships moved toward Aravella's command vessel. The sky turned red with plasma. She stood firm. "Let them come," she said. The humans smiled. "They'll regret it." As the ship rocked, under impact, they left the bridge together. Suited in armor forged from both human steel and Zalaran crystal, they entered the launch bay. Fighters waited. Their personal craft, the Unity Spear, powered up with a rising hum. They launched into the battle. Their ship moved like thought, slicing through enemy lines. Each shot fired felt precise. Each dodge felt instinctive. The bond guided every motion. Together, they were unstoppable. The battle grew worse around them. Allies fell. Explosions painted the void. But Aravella and the human didn't slow. They aimed for the largest enemy ship. It pulsed at the center like a beating heart. It was the source. The command vessel. Their path was blocked by a swarm of smaller ships. Dozens rushed them. The Unity Spear spun, dove and cut between them. But it wasn't enough. Their shields began to fail. Warning lights blinked. Damage mounted. They made the choice together. They ejected from the ship. Straight into the cold of space. Armor shielding them. Boosters fired. They moved like comets toward the enemy command vessel. Inside, they knew, was the key to ending this. The outer shell of the ship cracked under their weapons. They forced entry. Inside, the air was thick and red. The walls were alive, pulsing like muscle. Creatures attacked, shadows with blades. They fought as one, fluid, deadly, without pause. The core chamber was guarded by a towering creature. Neither machine nor flesh. It spoke in a voice that echoed inside their skulls. You should not exist. Your bond broke the silence. You must be undone. Aravella raised her blade. We are the silence no more. The human raised his weapon. We are the storm that follows. They charged as one. The battle was brutal. Blades clashed. Light flashed. The chamber shook. At the end, they stood over the broken core, the creature gone, the ship trembling. The bond pulsed between them stronger than ever. Aravella placed her hand on the control spike. The human covered hers with his. And together, they ended it. A burst of energy exploded from the enemy vessel. Across the field, the unknown fleet shuddered. Lost control, collapsed. One by one, the ships dimmed and died. Silence fell across the stars once again. The war was over. In the days that followed, rebuilding began. Worlds mourned their dead. Leaders signed peace treaties. Species once divided now shared resources. And in every hall of power, one story echoed above all others. The story of a princess who once vowed to never bond with a human, and the human who never asked her to together. They had changed everything. They stood on the balcony of the new galactic capital. Below them, thousands cheered, not for royalty, not for soldiers, but for hope. She took his hand, not as ruler and warrior, not as alien and human, but as equals, as partners, as something the galaxy had never seen before. A future born not from bloodlines or war, but from a bond no one expected.